Welcome, one and all, sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers, to another one of my special wizard tales.
D4, the Trojan Dog. Once upon a time, there was a deserted old house. Inside lived a colony of mice. The mice were very happy there until 3 nasty stray cats moved in and forced the mice to live behind a cramped wall. One day, one of the mice, little Cosmo, who wore a beret, disappeared after going out to play. His mother, Mrs. Limburger, was terribly upset.
"The cats have eaten him for sure!"
she cried.
Mrs. Lindberger, please pull yourself together. Stiff up her whiskers and all that. Cosmo may simply have found some nice cheese or met a new friend,
said the mouse mayoress, Mrs. Camembert.
They better not have eaten him,
said Cordula, Cosmo's tough older sister.
"Mrs. Mayoress, you must do something,"
demanded Mrs. Limburger.
Oh, I just wish we could think of something to do,
exclaimed the mayoress. But there was nothing the little mice could think of. Little Cordula was determined to find a way to get rid of the cats. In the old library, and quite by chance, she found herself reading a book about the Trojan horse and how soldiers had built a hollow wooden horse and hidden inside it to defeat their enemies. Suddenly, Cordula had a brilliant idea and excitedly rushed back to tell the others.
We could make a Trojan dog, like the ancient Greeks did, and scare them cats away,
she said.
It would not be possible. Even Professor Boccaccini couldn't do that.
Steady on, Mayoress Camembert. We may be only mice, but we do have sharp minds. I think Cordula might be onto something,
said Professor Boccaccini, the oldest and most intelligent mouse.
Are you saying that you could create such a thing? A Trojan cat chaser?
Asked the mayoress. The professor nodded wisely, and immediately all the mice became very excited and made lots of noise. The mayoress picked up her gavel and banged it on the table.
Shh! If we do make this dog, I suggest we give the project a code name.
How about D4? Just like D for dog,
suggested Cordula.
Brilliant, Cordula! D4 it is!
Outside, each sitting in a chair, were the 3 cats, Clawless, Simone, and Drowsy. They had just finished a meal of fish. Drowsy was dozing while naughty Clawless had just thrown his fishbone on the floor.
Pick them up and put them in the fire,
said Simone haughtily. Lazy Clawless nudged Drowsy in the ribs and woke him up.
Well, go on, Drowsy, do what Simone says,
he said.
Me, boss,
said Drowsy, rubbing his bleary eyes.
And while you're on your feet, find me some fresh raw mouse. We're out of fish. How unusual,
said Simone. Drowsy headed towards the mouse hole. Inside the hole, the mice were getting ready to build their Trojan dog. Little Bluey, the scout mouse, was sent to watch for cats. He had no sooner looked when he saw Drowsy approaching. He shouted, running to and fro, warning all his friends. All the mice became very frightened. They screamed. Mayoress Camembert quickly ran to the hole and slammed the door.
Mouse murderer!
She yelled. In the next instant, the door burst open and Drowsy put his paw through and began feeling about. His paw landed on a smelly, small cheese sausage. Drowsy closed his claws over it and pulled it back through the hole. He returned to Simone and asked her to close her eyes and put her paws out.
It's one of them cheese-fed mice. Ooh, feel how fat it is,
said Drowsy proudly.
Oh, it does feel like a fatty. Cheese-fed, you say?
Said Simone, licking her lips and squeezing it. Suddenly, gooey, smelly cheese squirted out all through her knuckles. Cried Simone in disgust. Later, after the cats had gone again, the mice emerged and began searching the house for metal, which the professor needed to build the Trojan Dog. But without warning, the cats returned again, sending the frightened mice scurrying. Screamed the mice. The cats, seeing the mice, chased them all over the house. Just as it seemed there was no hope for the mice, a bell was heard. The cats immediately stopped and listened, and then they heard a distant voice.
Fish-o, get your fresh fish-o. The fishmonger's back in town. Fresh fish,
said Clawless eagerly. The excited cats forgot about the mice and quickly bounded out the door to get fresh fish from the fishmonger. As all the mice began returning to the hole, Chalk, Cheddar, and Feta found little Cosmo's beret near the fireplace, but there was no sign of Cosmo. Sadly, they took the beret back to Cosmo's mother.
Oh, boys, enough! I cannot thank you. You have given us hope a little Cosmo may still be alive,
she said. Just then, little Bluey was heard again.
Attention, all mice! Attention, all mice! Professor Bartoncini is about to unveil his huge D4.
All the mice rushed up to watch the professor unveil his invention.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Mousekind's answer to cats. D4, the ultimate cat remover.
Cheered the mice.
All right, little Bluey, throw the switch. Stand back, everyone,
ordered the professor. Little Bluey reached up to a switch underneath the ribs of D4 and turned him on. For a moment, there was silence, and then a strange whirring sound started coming from within D4 as he came to life. Went the mice. Then D4 blinked and wagged his tail, which made the mice laugh. D4 suddenly barked loudly.
Woof!
Outside, Clawless and Drowsy were asleep. Simone, who was polishing her claws, heard the bark from inside.
Wake up, boys. I think there's a dog in the house,
she said. Inside the mouse hole, Cordula realized the danger and turned to D4.
Hey, Deefa! No more barking! Them cats will hear ya! Sit, boy, sit!
She ordered. D4 obediently sat down. Then the mayoress clapped her hands.
All right, it's time for Plan Ace. All cats exterminated. We'll swing into action at dawn tomorrow,
she said in a military fashion. Next morning at dawn, little Bluey announced the cats had gone.
Cats have left the building! Cats have left the building!
The professor immediately activated D4 and gave him instructions.
You are a dog, Deefa. The only good cat, Deefa, is no cat at all. Understood?
The mayoress ordered all the mice to move out through the hole in the wall into the area where the cats lived. It was only when D4 slammed into the wall, because he was too big to fit through the hole, that the professor realized he had overlooked something. The mayoress began to panic. How were they going to get D4 through the wall?
Eat, my dear Mayoress, eat! We mice can eat anything,
responded the professor. Within moments, the professor had all the little mice gnawing at the wall to make a hole big enough for D4 to fit through. Finally, when D4 walked through it, all the mice cheered. They yelled. The cats were due back at any second. The mice quickly opened the hatch in D4's tummy, put up a ladder, and climbed inside. Only moments later, the cats appeared. When they opened the door, they were met by a huge mechanical dog that barked loudly at them.
Roof!
Barked D4. Screeched the cats in fright. Inside D4, the mice started cheering. Their clever plan was definitely working. They cheered, but suddenly there was another noise. The town's bus. D4's ears pricked up, and before the mice knew it, he bounded out the open door to chase it. He barked happily. Down the path he ran, onto the street, gathering speed, while all the poor little mice bounced around inside him. The professor tried to explain to the mayoress what had gone wrong.
He's a car chaser. Quite normal for a dog. Have it fixed in no time,
he explained. The professor ordered Chalk, Feta, and Cheddar to open the hatch and turn off D4's switch. Somehow they reached the switch and turned it off. Immediately, D4 screeched to a stop. The mice then heard a strange sound outside, like sniffing.
Wonder what that could be. Sounds like... Perhaps we'd better take a look,
said the professor, wondering what on earth it could be. Little Bluey carefully opened the hatch and looked out through his binoculars.
Uh-oh. Dogs! Professor, we're surrounded by dogs!
He said nervously. Outside, a huge Mastiff dog gave D4 a hefty nudge, toppling him over with a crash, sending all the mice tumbling around inside again. The dogs moved cautiously towards D4. The big Mastiff sniffed around D4's ear.
There's something funny going on around here,
he said.
He looks like a real dog, but he certainly don't smell much like one.
A wolfhound sniffed D4 as well.
Smells like a car skin. Can't be one of us.
To their surprise, D4 seemed to reply to them, but it was really the professor talking through a megaphone.
What you saying, guys? I'm a dog just like you. Okay, I'm all cramped up, that's all. I'm just resting a minute.
Then, in a whisper, the professor instructed little Bluey to turn the switch back on. When he did, D4 immediately got to his feet again. The professor asked the dogs to come back to the house to help chase away the cats. The dogs quickly agreed, especially when the professor said the dogs could live at the house with them, and they all set off. They barked as they ran back down the road with D4. When they arrived at the house, they charged inside. Instantly, the air was filled with sounds of screeching, meows, and barking. What a din! A moment later, all 3 cats ran screeching out through the front door, out onto the street, and ran away as fast as they could. Later, inside the house, the huge mastiff cocked his head as though hearing something.
Are you sure everyone's here? Your worship, all your mice?
He asked the mayoress.
Yes, they're all accounted for, except little. Why do you ask?
The mastiff scratched his head.
I dunno. I keep hearing a little voice calling for help. Us dogs hear things better than most animals, you know.
There was the sound of a tiny voice. It could scarcely be heard.
Yeah, I can hear it again,
said the mastiff.
I reckon it's over there, in that wall.
A short time later, they cracked open the wall near the fireplace. To their amazement, out jumped a little boy mouse who had been stuck in a crack between the bricks after running up the chimney to get away from the cats. Shouted Mrs. Limburger and Cordial joyously as the little fellow appeared. And with the horrid cats gone, the mice and the dogs and D4 all lived happily in the house ever after.
All I need is cheese. All I need is cheese. I don't need lettuce and I don't need tomato. Pretty please, pretty please. I would get down on my knees for a cheese. 2, 3, 4. All I need is cheese. All I need is cheese. Pretty please. I will get down on my knees for a cheese. Waiter, can I have a glass of cheese?
And thus another fine wizard tale concludes. Sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers, join me again soon for another classic tale. Won't you?